The purpose of our
This meeting
group,
is being recorded.
there it is. The purpose of our group is to make personal connections with our local legislators in an effort to create positive legislative change. And I would say 1 year in, I was looking at my memories on Facebook. Like just 1 year ago is when we started going to delegation meetings, and really making a difference in a exposure to the state on our issues. So this year we're right at kind of the time of the year where they start planning. We've got a few days to determine who all of our representatives will be. And then they'll start assigning all of these members into committees, and delegations meetings are going to start rolling out. So now is really the time for us to get serious in the game. What issues are we going to be talking with our local legislators about and making those conversations move forward? So, so sorry about last meeting and the mix up with the sign-ins. Nicole had Acadia from Florida Voices of Health all ready to go to come speak to us on how we can be effective with our media presence. And Acadia can't be on the call today, but Nicole has all the slides and she's going to talk to us about that. And I know that Florida Voices for Health would like to be on the call. They'll be on a future call. So Nicole, would you like to go into your media thing? Okay.
All right, guys. Like I said, sorry for the mix-up. My fault last week. We just couldn't get the normal as scheduled link to work. So, but we do have the slides, and we'll go over that today. We were kind of talking about what would be some valuable tools moving, forward as we have 3 more days till the election, and then we can really hit the ground running, as Stephanie said. So I thought, oh, media engagement. I mean, even if it's something that, you're already very familiar with, it never hurts to kind of brush up on a bit of that familiarity. And Acadia and Florida Voices for Health had put together this really great training that I did with them a while ago. And so they came back to give that same training. So I'm going to go through, and forgive me if some of this is already understood. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. But so I'm just going to kind of go through and hope that, here we go, share, that this, there we go, is good for everybody. So I'm borrowing the slide information from Florida Voices for Health, another partner organization of ours. They're fantastic. Their advocacy centers around healthcare in its entirety. So they don't have a disability focus with their lens. However, it's the broad brush, right, for healthcare. But they're fantastic. They're amazing allies. They are very, very awesomely connected, so great and supportive of everything we've been doing. And, if you ever get an opportunity to jump on one of their calls, I would highly recommend it. So without further ado, this is kind of the information that they share with us here. So let me know, or just kind of, if at the end, I'll get to the slides as quick as possible, and then we'll do some, if you have questions, just put it in the chat, or we'll do like at the end of it, so I can get through as quickly as possible. So I don't want to try to read out every single slide, but let's talk about why media advocacy matters. Just like, advocacy that we talk about all the time with legislators and our local policymakers, establishing connections with local media is invaluable. And in that same vein, it helps us shift perspectives. We can, look at different levels of audiences, not just locally, but, across the state and across the country. Building those relationships help keep our movement moving forward, right? So that's why it's really important. And they also talk about stories. In Florida Voices for Health, they collect, just kind of like we do, to talk about the power and how you can leverage your personal experiences to help make impactful change. So stories, that's the most powerful currency you have, and it's helpful to motivate others to action, right? You hear a lot of statistics, you hear a lot of history, but something that's always going to stick with a legislator, with a reporter, with someone, is going to be that personal story, that personal connection. If it's memorable, if it's shareable, Also it's also vulnerable, right? It shows trust. You build relationships when you kind of share these personal things that happen to you. And it also motivates others because it's evocative, right? So this is another reason why it's so important and why they say it's your number one toolkit, right?
Real quick on stories, because I have had a lot of our families say, "Hey, Steph, we did the story thing last year. I've gone to our legislator, I've told her them our stories." And the story thing, it's just everybody's done it. It's we've done it, we've done it, we've done it. And my response to that is, well, with your story and the challenges you're facing, has the problem been resolved? Because
Right,
I'll keep telling our story until our story has a solve, and all of our stories evolve. What I had written in our story share last year is not the story I had for this year when I'm speaking to legislators. So all of those stories, Amanda, if you wouldn't mind, if you could put the link in the chat, we are gearing up those stories again. We'll put a different layout on it because this is a new year. Um, but our premise here, our mission in this group is sharing our stories. Um, so we want all of the families to begin to start filling those out. If your story is still the same and that issue hasn't been addressed, that's okay. And you can say to your legislator, "Hey, I talked about this last year and I'm still struggling with the connection to change in this story. What can we do differently? What are we working on?" But you know every person has a story, and that is our most powerful form of currency, is to talk to these legislators. They don't know, they're not in our shoes, they don't do the everyday. So to even remind them, if your story is exactly the same, share it again. But I highly doubt it, because every single day that we live on this earth, our stories evolve and things change. But the issues that I've brought up with legislators this year aren't the ones I brought up last year, and next year they will look different too. Our families will continue to need. So I can't say high enough. Thank you, Florida Voices of Health, on story. We need to keep
and
talking about
they've
our.
actually offered to partner with us on that going forward. So remind me to talk to you about that. So, jumping back into the training, they talk about three parts of a public narrative. Invite others to be in that relationship with you when you share that. It invites others in the community to join in. And then it also is a call for action, right? Just everything that Stephanie was talking about. Yes, we say stories, and I know you probably hear that a lot. However, we cannot quantify enough how impactful that is. And I think if you're still on the call and you're still jumping in and talking to us, you realize that we still have a long way to go. I think Fino said at the beginning, what are the hills we have? A lot of hills that we still have not conquered. So, and that's why we keep doing this. All right. What makes a good news story? There's a lot of things that, let's talk about from a reporter or from an editor's perspective, things that they're looking for. So let's say you have your story. How can you make that something that they're going to want to, dig through further? Well, does it have conflict, right? Is there tension, prominence? Does it involve well-known companies, geography? Think about the big numbers of statistics. I could share some data with you guys later, but there was a recent study that came out that showed that the disability group, as far as any other minority group, is the largest and climbing, I think, right? Over a quarter of the population, last CDC estimate, but it keeps growing. I have to send it to you. But so when you talk about like statistics, why is that important? Well, see here, prominence, impact. How is the impact? The timeliness. Well, this is happening now, right? Exceptions, first, trends. Do you have doctors and experts that are willing to explain why this is so impactful? So keep in mind a couple of these elements, and then these are things that reporters and such, they're looking for from you about why this is so important, right? Okay, so let's keep going. Here's some tools to gain press attention. Media advisories or press releases. I actually got to do one of those for the first time myself recently, so that's fun. We have templates we could probably share with you if you'd like to see something like that. Press statements, setting up an actual press conference, as we have only 3 days left for the election and we start jumping into committee assignments and everything right after that, consider holding a press conference in your area ahead of delegation meetings. These are key times when conversations are being had. This is the time to start rallying support. Rallies in the next bullet point: events, interviews, letters to the editor, or opinion pieces on op-ed, right? And editorial board visits. So all different kinds of ways that we can engage with local media.
So letter to the editor, just
Yeah.
to make it very simple for families, it's quite literally, I think less than 5 paragraphs. You
It's
write.
usually going to be 200 to 400 words, and you can go to each publication. You can search and see when they look for op-ed pieces. Every news agency will have a different requirement. So if you're looking at something that says 200 words, Florida Today, their max is 200 words if it's op-ed. So that's like 2 paragraphs, really. It's not a lot.
It's
And
not a lot.
so it's, if you're thinking that sounds overwhelming, really, it's not too bad. So if you're looking for examples on any of that, let us know. I would be more than happy to share with you some of the stuff that I've written before. You guys can take a look at that, see if it's useful to you. I might even be able to kind of troll a couple of the different news agencies and just put their contact info out there for you guys to make it a little bit easier to show, like, okay, if you want an op-ed here, or if you want to submit an article, these are the things that the editors are looking for. That's for print media. So and let's talk about, visual or like TV. Let's talk about what reporters like to know. Context. So they talk about news and novel information, but for me, initially, when I work with reporters, the first thing they want is context. What is this? Why is this so important? What is the urgency? Objective and factual data. So usually when you're talking about talking anything like live press, you need to make sure you have all this stuff on hand. And then different perspectives, kind of know what the opposition is going to say before you say it. So you can kind of counter too. It's a lot of that chess stuff, but you already know. We've been doing this for a long time. You already know what they're going to say. They're going to talk about funding. They're going to talk about, these things, but you can come back and say, well, actually, and pivot. But this is what reporters are looking for when they come to talk to you. Understand the rules of journalism, what is on and off the record, what qualifies that. So make sure that you're very clear if you're ever talking to a reporter. Uh-oh. My screen stopped sharing. Hold on, guys. Give me just a second and I'll come right back. Let me see here. Go back. Allow. Replace. So I think somebody tried to share a minute ago. That's why. There we go. All right, here we go. You guys good? Everybody can see? All right. So, okay. On and off the record, make sure you understand and everybody's clear and on the same page. Determine your key messages and the goal for that interview. Make sure that everything is understood in advance. Research the outlet in that particular reporter. Kind of watch, interviews and such that they've done before. That'll help give you an edge on how they conduct interviews. Block that time, prepare in advance, and plan around your appearance. So some things that seem, fairly understood, but sometimes can easily get forgotten, in the excitement of the moment. Now, during the interview, be friendly, be open. This is when we talk a lot about body language and how important that is, social cues and connections. If you're sitting, with your arms crossed, this is not very open, recognizing, how your resting expressions are, that kind of thing. That's for me. That's not for any of you, I swear. For me. I've been called out on that too many times, and I swear it's not that. I just am inquisitive and I'm quiet. I'm a person that I'm waiting to hear what you say first before I say anything. I see a lot of you laughing at me, so this is going well. I swear. This is just beware. Learn from me, and now I'm like completely. See, my whole face is red, you guys. Speak clearly, avoid jargon. Now, this is where I want to share with everybody here, because we have our own language, don't we, in our disability world? We have acronyms that military people would be envious of, because I am former military. I get it all the time. Beware of that. Not everybody knows what APD is, or IDD, or, and so on and so forth. So beware of that whenever you're talking to someone who doesn't live in our world. Be honest about the limits of your knowledge. This part, if I had to say if there's one bullet point on this slide or this entire presentation that's the most important, underline, bold, exclamation mark, please, take nothing else away, this is it. If you don't know, don't be afraid to say that, or say something to the effect of, I'm not 100% sure, let me get back to you on that. Because your credibility is that one thing that you cannot recover from. You can absolutely go back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you about that acronym, or I, forgot about this, or I just started, mumbling, redo. You can't come back from losing your credibility. So don't ever be afraid to say, hey, I don't know, right? Now, also, if you're in an interview, I feel like this should be obvious, but just in case, don't multitask, phone off, that kind of thing. You're engaged in the interview. And bring your enthusiasm, because there's a reason why you're passionate and you're doing this, because it means a lot to you. Let that bleed through to the reporter and to your interview. They're going to know why it's so important because of how passionate you are about what you're talking about. All right, moving on. Okay, so they talk in this page about sound bites. I know everybody knows what a sound bite is, and this I don't know that I really need to kind of get into that, but just be mindful of that when you're talking. If there's an opportunity that you can think of when you're answering a question that gives you that small, like, underline, ooh, hashtag, whatever, make sure you take advantage of that moment. Repeat key messages. Hey, we have not fully funded the APD waitlist. We have not fully funded the APD waitlist. If I can't say that 5 times more, they're going to have it at least once or twice in the interview. Usually they talk about the fact that if you're doing an article and you got somebody's attention, it's the first 2 lines maybe. If you're doing an interview, it's going to be about 10 to 15 seconds before someone else is pulling out their phone who's watching it, or they flip the channel or whatever. And if you said that one line 5 times, chances are they'll have heard it. So, repeat key messages and, use illustrative language, metaphors, focus on positive outcomes. Don't be negative. Obviously, it's a negative thing that we're trying to work on, but if your attitude is negative, then, that's really what a lot of people are just going to remember at the end of the day. So, okay. Okay, so reporter tactics, some things that you might want to be aware of. They're going to have their agenda, when they're doing the interview. Kind of be mindful of that. They're going to have things that they're wanting to focus on. That's okay. Just, you can use bridges, what they call, well, we've covered that, let's go back to this, or, yeah, let's move on. That's a good question, really important. But what I really would like to talk about is this. Just kind of keep it on your message. Let me just add that, so these are some examples. Bridging, make sure that you kind of keep on to, what your interview is about. Flags, emphasizing what you consider important, again, underlying those same messages. The most important thing to remember is, fill in the blank. I want to make sure that you understand this is why. Fill in the blank, right? Hooking statements are designed to drive an interviewer to ask for follow-up questions. So, they're, well, you say something and the reporter comes back and says, could you explain that? Could you give us more information? Hey, that's a hook. So here's just one of the positive outcomes. Oh, well, what are the other positive outcomes? There's an example of kind of how that dialogue might work. Okay. So the next couple slides kind of talk about some of these examples. I'm not going to read through them. I'll just have it up for a second and then I'm going to flash through. So they're talking here about ACA. Hey, we know ACA. So it's just some of this information here, right? And also, look at the pictures of the people doing the interviews too. I think that's kind of interesting. Oh yes, here. I wouldn't quite put it that way. So if a reporter tries to repeat something, but that's not the way your message was intent or whatever, make sure you correct it right away. Hey, no, I'm sorry, I wouldn't put it that way. Let make sure that you understand this is what I'm saying. You don't want to worry about hypotheticals. Again, stay within your experience, your knowledge. Keep that interview where you want it. All right, that's right, here we go. So practice. They talk about writing your key points on an envelope. here is what they talk about for your wording. So 27 words, which is 9 seconds. That's 3 points that you get in an interview. So if an interview is 30 minutes or 15 minutes, most people are only going to get about 10 seconds of that. So trying to make sure that you have your points understood in advance, what you want to target. Make sure you have all of that going into the interview. You're already prepared. So here's a kind of a breakdown, the problem, personal story, what's the solution, and what you're asking people to do about it, their call to action. Okay, so we talked about your body language and your facial expressions. We don't need to go through this again. Talked about appearance and your wardrobe and be prepared. Doing your homework. So not just for, news outlets, but your legislators. We do the same thing when we go to meetings. You know who you're going to meet. If you're going to meet with the legislator, with the aide, know your organization, know the issues, know what they're going to say no about. Kind of anticipate the opposition. What is going to be the pushback and prepare for that. So you can say, hey, I actually have some research that contradicts, what that is, or, whatever. Have that in advance. Okay, so here's the final checklist. I'll just leave that up for a minute. This is just a kind of a summary of some of the stuff that we've talked about before, some do's and don'ts to prep for, any kind of interview with the media. And I will provide a copy of these slides in the Facebook group, so you guys can get this later. Okay, so following up after the interview, the same kind of thing you would do with a legislator or an aide if you got to meet with them. Follow up afterwards. Make sure you get their contact information, and then, a week or two later, you follow up, ask when it's going to air, ask if they need any more information or context or research. Keep that relationship going, because chances are it's not going to be the only time you ever talk to them, right? At least we hope. So this is about establishing that kind of connection, just like with our legislators. You want to keep your contacts, you want to reach out regularly, you want to have that relationship built. So if there's ever a time when we need their help, you can reach out, right? So that is the end of the questions. And this is, again, Acadia's contact information. And like I said, that I will very much happily share with you guys on the Facebook page. And then going into real quick kind of what we talked about, please forgive my very messy desktop, before about the, and let me just see if I can find, here we go, the slides I wanted to share with you guys real quick. Some of the stuff that I had briefed before at a different meeting, and these are only a couple, sorry, I'll get through this quick. But so this is something that I've been sharing with a bunch of other organizations. We've been talking about, well, all right, we've got our election, then what? All right, so I've been trying to capture, these are some bills and allocations that I've heard about, word on the street, that are being shopped around right now. So if, there's an issue there that you're particularly, engaged with or want to work with or whatever, I've been trying to track where the conversations have been had, and what's the status of it. Are we going to see this as an actual bill come the legislative session? There's a couple of different things obviously up there, and so I'm trying to keep all this tracked so we can keep ahead of all of that information. Oops, sorry, going backwards. I developed a media tracker. This is going to get populated here soon with contacts, issues. We're going to follow up and track it with the bills and everything like that. I've been doing, and this is going to get updated, sorry, but this is a calendar put together of events getting ready to populate ahead of the election and going forward. So you will see on there House, Senate committee meetings, lobby days, and delegation meetings, all that kind of stuff I'm going to put on here, and we're going to put it in the tracker. And then we're going to map the session. So, I can't afford to be up there the entire time. I'm going to be up there the second week of March personally, but I don't know if everybody else is already making plans. IDD Day is March 11th, so that's me, Intellectual Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day, IDD Day. Awareness in Tallahassee is March 11th. This year, or this session. So I will be up there from the 9th to the 15th in Tallahassee, and we'll see what we see when we get there. The last thing I wanted to share, and I don't have it ready yet, but it's going to be a slide that adds to this where we talk about a tracker of, after all the election stuff is done, we're going to write down the names of every single, state rep, state senator that we have. And every time one of our group has a meeting, let us know. We're going to put that information in there. And we're going to say, when we get to session, nobody can tell us that they've not heard our issues before. I don't want to have a single aide or, legislators say, oh, this is the first time I'm hearing that. Well, no, actually not. We have a couple of meetings that we've had with you beforehand, and that's going to be our goal to see. Plus, share with us if you've got some good feedback with the legislator that you met with, hey, I maybe found an ally here who is looking to help us with this one bill, whatever. But that is the information. I hope I didn't take too long, and I don't know if anybody has questions.
I don't have a question. The first thing I want to say is holy high level work there, our friend Nicole. That's incredible. What Acadia and Florida Voices of Health offered there through the slides with the media. Like if you could share, it'll take me 3 times to read that again to get the information.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was thinking about kind of with regards to the media and how we can do it without it being like seemingly like a big task is what if in the month of November we each find our local paper and write a letter to the editor, 2 paragraphs or less on our issue. Elections are coming up and we want our new elected officials to know who we are, get to know our stories. And I feel like that's an easy thing that we can each do that would spread the message fast and quick. I need all the heads on this talking call. What do you guys think? Yeah, I see Sylvia's nodding. Oh, it's good to see you, Sylvia. Look at you, Miami, you. All you think that's something that you could do? Work with us and we'll get samples? Yeah? Melissa, what do you think? Get families engaged? If each of us could just the month of November, write a small letter to the editor, and Nicole will put that on the Facebook page, samples. Having us all do it at the same time, I think will make a bigger impact. And getting as many of those organizations on that slide you had there and let them know, in November, we want our newly elected officials to know who we are and that we want to talk to them about our issues. Yay! Okay, so that is an official for all the people agenda item. Action granted. I thought since Melissa's on this call, and she has a giant network of families she's talking to. Melissa, would you mind kind of sharing, updating us since it's been about a month since we've all loved each other? Anything going on that we should know?
There's always something going on, that's for sure. And especially since today is November 1st, my big, huge issue recently, and this should bother everybody, is how many of our folks are being kicked off of Medicaid unceremoniously. Today, we're still not done going through everybody within our agency. I think we still have 2 more caseloads to do, an additional 11 people so far today that we've discovered have been kicked off of Medicaid for no good reason. So I contacted Senator Gruder's office, who's in Sarasota, to actually went there yesterday, met with them, and then I'm gonna go there on Tuesday. I'm gonna actually bring some stuff with me to show them, and I am, we did that almost like that private delegation meeting with Rep. Buchanan in Sarasota a couple of months ago, and I'm working on that with Gruder's to get that to happen. I also have a tentative meeting scheduled with, down in your neck of the woods, Stephanie, with Pasadomo on the 14th. So, but the big thing right now is Medicaid. It's affecting so many folks on the waiver that, it's stressing and straining this already fragile system unnecessarily, and nobody's doing anything about it. I also left a message today for the legislative affairs director at DCF about it. So that's the fire right now. And another thing that's happened, like just within the last couple of weeks, we've received a couple of emails from APD to have requesting, like, is there anybody that can take these crisis cases down here in, again, Collier County, that we don't have anybody available. There's no support coordinators available. There's nobody. So we took the first one, our agency did, but I don't have anybody to take. I didn't even have somebody to take the first case. I really kind of like asked one of the coordinators who's already way over cases. I was like, could you please, it's a crisis. They need help. And then literally, I think within 8 days, I got another email asking for the same thing. So that's definitely a big problem. And for other support coordination agencies that are out there, I know that they are all struggling with this issue with Medicaid and the incredible amount of time that is going into trying to restore people's Medicaids. I don't have time to hire and train new support coordinators to get people off of the wait list. We're too busy dealing with this nonsense, this bureaucracy that's completely unnecessary. So my letter to the editor, or any editors at this point, is going to be about, Medicaid, and the fact that until this is something that gets straightened out, it's just not only just causing a stress and a strain on the families unnecessarily and the providers unnecessarily, but also it is impeding agencies who actually want to hire people where we would have the time to be able to do that kind of stuff. But instead, our energy is being, focused on this fire of, issues going on with people's Medicaids. We just got somebody's Medicaid restored that has been without Medicaid since March 1st. She has Down syndrome. She has no family. She has nobody. I mean, she's got providers, but she has no natural supports. We went through the whole thing with requesting a fair hearing, all of that stuff. Finally, it's finally been resolved. And the Medicaid program that she was on was actually protected Medicaid. That was what she was on, protected Medicaid. So how does somebody on protected Medicaid get kicked off of Medicaid? And guess what? They restored it to protected Medicaid. So they put the protected Medicaid back in place, but they put this woman who's 48 years old with Down syndrome on family planning Medicaid, which is a partial Medicaid program. It's for women that are going to have kids. This is not the right demographic here. So just me even pointing out something as common sense as that was still not enough. We still had to go through the hearing process. I shudder to think at how much money we are spending, all of us, paying taxes, that's going right toward this unnecessary, ridiculous bureaucracy of restoring Medicaid, or fighting the state on Medicaid, wasting time. We could be taking this time, this energy, and putting it into actually helping people get services, get off of that wait list. But nope, we're wasting it and spending it doing this. So this has been going on for well over a year at this point, with our folks in particular. And just a couple of figures, just so you have an idea of how ridiculous this is. At the height of COVID, and this is part of the unwinding process that they're doing with people that were put onto Medicaid during COVID because they lost their jobs and they needed health insurance. At the height, December of 2022, there were 5.57 million people on Medicaid in Florida. That's 5,570,000 people on Medicaid in Florida. There are less than 36,000 people on this program. Less than 36,000 folks with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, autism, all mixed in with 5.57 million people, and just put in like some regular weird revolving door queue of, okay, let's review this person's Medicaid next. And deleting their Medicaids, ending their Medicaids and stuff, because they're assigning them to workers that do not have the experience to know what an high-budget waiver recipient is, let alone a developmental disability. And nobody at APD is doing anything on a larger, scale to fix this problem. And that's what needs to happen. It's not like let's fix one person at a time type of action. This is like, let's fix this problem. Let's extract these less than 36,000 people, vulnerable folks, from this group of over 5 million, and put them in a nice little special protected area where we're not going to mess with their Medicaid, so that they don't have to sweat this, they don't have to stress, and the providers are not going to, be in a position where they're not getting paid. I mean, that's a huge problem. When you have providers that are not getting paid, how long are they supposed to provide services for? And what are they supposed to do? This person that doesn't have any family, what are we supposed to do? If she doesn't have her providers getting paid, we're gonna drop her at a hospital? You can't do that. So it's inhumane, it's cruel, it's unnecessary, and it's bureaucracy, and it's costing us a ton of money as taxpayers. That's why it bothers me, like how much money we are wasting doing it with, or spending toward this. So that's something that I'm real upset about. It's November 1st, and already my agency's telling me, like, we got 11 more people so far. 11 more people so far this month. We had 6 last month. We had 8 the month before that have been dropped off. That's just the last couple of months. So anyway, that's the latest on that. But
I thought you'd have a few words to say.
What's that?
I said I thought you'd have a few things to say, but I love to say it with
Medicaid.
fierce love. That is fierce love. One of the things I heard from somebody that works inside Medicaid is have these people file complaints, go through the complaint process. So that's one thing that for data keeping purposes, when we go talk to legislators of families that are having issues with ACA, whether it being dropped or whatever the issue is, to actually go through the complaint process. And I hope that you give that same amount of zest to Senator Pasadomo next week. She just got an earful from me on the same subject, so it will be 2 peas in a pod there. And that's how we speak with one voice, right? We all go to our people and hear what Melissa's saying. If it's not you who's been dropped off Medicaid today, it could be tomorrow. And if there's another pandemic or something else happens in the world and there's glitches or what have you, we're not protected. And that's why this is not my family's story today, but this is our family's story. And I can't emphasize how we all need to speak like Melissa, because it's logical. There's 35,000 of us out of 5 million. Let's separate that and keep it simple with these folks, because a lot of the questions I got back when I spoke about this with policy staff is, well, did the families get the notices? Did they apply? Did they? I'm not exactly sure. And I said, let me circle back to you. But the issue is, let's move forward. How can we protect this moving forward for if this happens? I don't want this to happen to my family. I don't want it to happen to yours. Melissa, would you mind, as a sample of a letter to the editor? I know you said that this is going to be your letter to the editor, but would you put that in an email and send that like this is our sample, just so, because thinking about these different things we haven't done, like writing letters to the editor, it'd just be nice to have somebody who's got one.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. And I think you guys are all probably, or hope you are aware of that NBC story, that aired with Lester Holt. I mean, that was on NBC Nightly News, and this is still happening. I mean, it's just, there's been so many articles written, there's been news coverage, there's lawsuits. It's like, come on, like, what's going on? It's almost like it's purposeful. Like, well, I don't want to fix that. That's what it kind of seems like at this point to me, and it's infuriating, absolutely infuriating. So, and it's unnecessary to do this to people who are already experiencing enough stress and complications and issues, just to exacerbate that situation already. It's just, I don't get it. And especially since these state agencies exist to help people. That's why they're in existence. That's why they are getting paid. And I know that, I I did somewhat stress or strain my relationship with the APD state office, because I did tell them, I was like, you know, if your salaries were dependent upon our clients having Medicaid, this problem wouldn't have existed in the first place. And it wouldn't. If they were not going to get paid, just like the providers that provide the services are not getting paid, if that was to happen, that this problem wouldn't have happened. So, you know, and I know that was, you know, not nice.
A hard truth.
Truthful.
But it's, yeah, it's a fact.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, I don't know if we've got about 15 minutes. We've been trying to make sure we leave that time for us to talk off book. So I'm going to turn the recording off. Everybody who would like to join us live, we will meet again, not this Friday, but the following Friday, which anybody with a calendar real quick so I can get it right. Today's the 1st, so that would be the 15th. So we will meet back here on Zoom on the 15th at 3 o'clock. We're going to end the recording and do just a